The Edmonton Oilers hired themselves a new head coach, and it's longtime NHL experienced coach Dave Tippett. In today's video, we're going to take a look at his coaching past history and discuss whether or not he's a good fit for the Edmonton Oilers. And that's coming up next. Welcome back to Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So after all this time, the Edmonton Oilers finally have themselves a brand new head coach, and it's a very experienced coach in Dave Tippett. Now, Dave Tippett's previously coached in the NHL for 14 years. It's been rumored and speculated for quite some time that he was the main candidate that new general manager Ken Holland was considering for this post. I think the last little while, it's kind of basically been confirmed he was going to be the coach. I think they were more so negotiating the contract and the terms of all that before they could formally make an announcement here. And there is a press conference coming up here shortly by the Oilers to introduce Dave Tippett as the new head coach. Although we do have confirmation that he is indeed going to be the next head coach here for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, who is Dave Tippett? Will he be a good fit for this Oilers team? So let's take a look here at his coaching history during his previous stints in the NHL. Dave Tippett is a guy who's coached in the NHL for 14 years. Of course, he is a former player prior to that, so he does know the game well. He's been around the NHL for a significant period of time. During his original stint in the NHL, he was a head coach with the Dallas Stars for 6 years, from 2002 to 2009. During that time frame, his teams made the playoffs 5 out of 6 years, including 2 division titles, and they did have a couple of deep playoff runs. Unfortunately, no Stanley Cup victories during that time frame, but overall, the Dallas Stars were a pretty competitive, fairly successful team during his 6-year stint. Not long after leaving the Dallas Stars organization, he joined the Coyotes, who at the time were known as the Phoenix Coyotes, now as the Arizona Coyotes. During the 2009-2010 season, his first full year, he was the Jack Adams winner for being the top coach in the NHL for that season. He ended up coaching Arizona for 8 years, right up until 2017. During the first 3 years of his stint as head coach, they were very successful, have a division title under their belt, made the playoffs the first 3 years. Everything was going well, but of course, finances kind of dictated a lot of what happened in Arizona. Obviously, from a financial standpoint, the team has struggled really for quite some time, and really from that point on, has really started to spend even less and kind of obviously struggle in the standings here as well. Of course, this past year, we've seen them bounce back up here, one of the better years they've had recently, but overall, the last 5 years of Tippett's stint with the Coyotes were not overly successful. They did miss the playoffs those 5 straight years, and then Tippett and the organization decided to part ways. June of 2018, he was hired by the new NHL expansion franchise for Seattle. So that ownership group hired him basically as a senior advisor. Wasn't quite clear to the public exactly what he was doing, but he was kind of working in a variety of roles. I've heard people say he had a lot of interest in developing an arena from the construction side, that he might be their coach by the time they're ready to play. He might want to get into management. There's been a lot of speculation over what his role was going to be longer term with that Seattle group, but ultimately he decided that he kind of had that urge to go back to coaching, and when he had an opportunity to go do that now rather than wait a little while longer, he decided to take that opportunity and take Ken Holland up on his offer to be the next head coach here of the Edmonton Oilers. So overall total here, he's coached 1,114 games as an NHL head coach. He has 553 wins and a 563 winning percentage, including a Jack Adams trophy. So overall, his stint in the NHL has been fairly successful. Those last 5 years with the Coyotes, I'm not sure we can put a whole lot of that lack of success on him. I think a lot of that has to do with the team's financial situation, lack of arena security, and a lot of the other things going on externally off the ice that he really had no control over there. So with all that being said, what kind of coach is Dave Tippett? Now, I've heard many people refer to him as a very defensive coach, a defense-first type of coach. And I know there's probably many out there that are concerned over your big-time scorers like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and what's that going to mean for them? Obviously, you don't want them getting any more frustrated than they've already been over the past couple of years here with the lack of success and the steps backwards they made. After having a playoff appearance and going to the second round a couple of years ago, it's been some major steps back ever since. And you know that the frustration is mounting, and they don't want their top stars to get to the point where they want out. So obviously, I know there's a lot of concern over that. So who better than to ask about what kind of coach Dave Tippett is than some of his former players. Now, I did see an article here put on sportsnet.ca, which I'm going to read you some excerpts from to kind of give you an idea of what he is like as a coach, and most of this comes from his former players, including his longtime captain with the Coyotes, Shane Doan. Now, the article starts here saying Shane Doan had only played 18 games for new head coach Dave Tippett back in the 09-10 season, but it was after a 3-2 win at home by his Phoenix Coyotes that he saw something he says now was one of the things I'll never forget. I was walking out of the dressing room and there was like 13 of his ex-players from the Dallas Stars waiting to go in to his coaching office, all wanting to say hi to him, and he was excited to see them all. So obviously Dave Tippett maintained a lot of good relations with a lot of players, and this goes to show that a lot of players did enjoy playing for him, and obviously that Dallas Stars franchise and team that he coached there had a fair bit of success. Even though they didn't get a Stanley Cup 5 out of 6 years in the playoffs, including a couple of fairly deep playoff runs, certainly success makes a lot of good friendships and a lot of bonds for the future, and obviously those guys were excited to see him. So that's obviously a good sign to know a lot of former players were certainly happy to keep in touch and really appreciated what he did for them when he was their head coach. Also interviewed for this article was Ray Whitney, who also played with the Coyotes for a long time during Dave Tippett's stint as head coach. He was asked, what advice would you give Connor and Leon for getting ready for the upcoming year and what to expect from their new head coach? His response was, I would tell them be prepared to have to play a full 200 game, began Ray Whitney, who played 2 seasons under Tippett in Phoenix. Whitney tied his second best points total ever with 77 points for the Coyotes during the 11-12 campaign. I think Tip has learned that the game has changed. You're going to have to give those types of players the time and space to do what they're going to do. And Connor and Leon, they're going to get their points no matter what, Whitney said. What they'll have to buy into is, Leon, if you don't score 50 goals and 100 points, but you get 40 goals and 85 points and we make the playoffs, is that going to be good enough? If they buy into it, they still might get to their 100 points, but they will be much better at both ends of the rink. Dave's is a team where everybody is asked to play the same way within reason. He took a team that no one could possibly do anything with to 107 points in his first season there. After things got really, really bad, he took them to average over 100 points in his first 3 years, Shane Doan said. You just got eroded over time. Without the stability to do things the right way, you eventually pick away at the roster. It was pretty much impossible to have any kind of success at the end when Tip was there. Look at it still. Rick Tocchet is doing an unbelievable job, and they still missed the playoffs. So obviously with well-respected players like Shane Doan and Ray Whitney having these great things to say about Dave Tippett and really encouraging the players to buy into the system and be prepared to learn how to play a better 200-foot game certainly goes to show what these guys should expect. Now, if their point totals dip a little bit, but they are a better team for it and they have more team success in getting into the playoffs, I really don't think at the end of the day these superstar offensive players are really going to care too much. I mean, at this point, I don't think it's fair to say McDavid or Draisaitl are really known as, strong defensive players, and that's not what they need to be all the time as well. But at the same time, as their game matures and evolves, I'm sure Tippett can help them become better 200-foot players, work stronger at both ends of the ice, and overall make this team a better club. Many people have said, what can you do with this Oilers roster? There's so many flaws in it. There's so many problems. Where do you start on how to fix it? And obviously a big part of that is going to be whatever moves GM Ken Holland makes over the summer to change the personnel they can put on the ice. But look at the team that Tippett had in Arizona those first 3 years, coming from former players Whitney and Doan, saying that this was a team that many people expected not much out of, and he was able to get a lot more out of them than many expected because of the structure and the strong 200-foot game he preached to everybody in the lineup. So overall, I do think Dave Tippett is going to be a good coach for the Oilers. I do think he can make them better, but a lot of that's going to depend on his ability to get the top guys to buy into what he's selling for his systems and his structure. Obviously, that team lacked a lot of structure, so they could certainly benefit a lot from a guy like Dave Tippett in that sense. Obviously, when you hear he's a defensive type of coach, really, like Shane Doan said in this article, that's just the structure you put in place to control certain parts of the aspects of the game. Obviously, there's certain things you can control and certain things you can't control, but you can control a lot on your positioning and your systems and your structure, and that's something this team greatly lacked before that hopefully Dave Tippett can help get much better with here in the upcoming year. So overall, I'm going to say I like this hire by the Edmonton Oilers. Could there have been a better solution out there? I guess it's always possible. I mean, there's different teams out there with different philosophies right now. Some are going with the old experienced coaches that have been around a long time, going that route and hoping experience is the way to go. Other teams bringing in much younger coaches that are having success at college or junior. And there's really no one right way to do all this. We've seen different coaches come in with different teams and have different levels of success, But I think overall, for what's out there, at least right now on the coaching market for guys looking for jobs, I do think Dave Tippett is a pretty good choice for this Oilers team. He's going to bring a lot of things that was lacking before. As long as he and the players can come to terms here and agree to buy into a system that he wants to preach and run for this team, I think they will be just fine, and we should see some decent improvements this year. But of course, as always, I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions down below on the hiring of Dave Tippett to be the next head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. Share your opinions down in the comments, and we will continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.